Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from Mama Talks NRL SuperCoach. In today's video, going through my hopefully final team and my also final thoughts on some of your hot topics and burning questions that some of you put to me over on Twitter. Probably going to be a little bit less edited, less slick, less stats in this video, more talking about just final thoughts, gut feels and vibes. So if I'm rambling, all that kind of good stuff, that's probably going to be the reason why. And hoping to do a lockout countdown live stream tomorrow from about 6:30 till lockout at 8 p.m. New South Wales time, just to run through any final thoughts that I have on my team if it changes in the next 24 hours, and also any of your final questions as well. So do stay tuned for that on Thursday. But for today, we'll put this video out. Hopefully you enjoy it. Give it a thumbs up if you do. Let's get straight into it. So just going to be working off the SuperCoach website in this video, making it a little bit easier for myself for future editing to go through my updated team. So if you tuned into my live stream last week, you would have seen I got Harry Grant in as my starting hooker, and that's still the case, and I'm very happy with that. Coruscant was definitely a consideration, but with the issues that we've got also with Brad Arthur throwing up Brendan Hands and Joey Lussick into his 17 for the Parramatta Eels, that has obviously been a big headache, and I've just liked the fact that I've got that solidity of Harry Grant in my team. I put a post out on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, and also on Instagram, which was basically saying that Coruscant has got the best run from rounds 2 to 6 for a hooker based on the opposition team's ability to concede points to opposition hookers. So I think Coruscant is going to be definitely a viable option for that run, and also to be a stepping stone to Grant. I've just decided that there's so many headaches and question marks that we've got. I'm trying to minimize how many trades I'll have to book in, especially just with my fringe players. I'm going to have to be booking in probably trades with fringe players just to sort things out. So I want to have that solidity of Harry Grant, who I know I've got him locked and loaded. With the backup hooker, that has changed. With that whole Brendan Hands, Joey Lussick situation, I've moved to Daniel Levi. Not thrilled about it, but he's near bottom dollar. He's currently starting for the Raiders, or he should be starting as well on Thursday, and he's just the best of a bad bunch, really. Like, I don't really want to be spending too much on those other Eels guys when the minutes could be up in the air. I expect Daniel Levi to be kind of splitting 40 minutes with Tom Starling, so they each play 40 minutes. And if I see a similar role happening with the Eels hookers, well, I may as well just take the money saving. So that's why I've gone to him. A couple of questions were about Ray Stone. I'm not overly keen on Ray Stone. He's priced at about 420k, and I think that's generally at his value. He's a very meat and potatoes type of player. There is Max Plath on the bench for the Dolphins. I do feel like he could spend potentially some time either at lock or maybe in backup dummy half, and I think he's going to take some minutes off Ray Stone. Just don't see a lot of value in Ray Stone. So that's just some thoughts on him, but that was one of the questions as well about him. So that's currently my hooking combination, and I think this is probably going to be pretty locked in for round one. I'm already locked in on my two starting front row forwards of Jai Arrow and Spencer Leniu. They were a little bit disappointing, only scoring 39 and 31 points respectively. One of the big considerations, and probably one of the big blessings, I think, out of this whole split round one, is that we've had a look at some players, and we've already got what looks like a good standout option in Terrell May. A little bit frustrating that I had Terrell May pretty much up until I want to say Saturday. And then we got some tidbits that Leniu could be playing bigger minutes, and I just made that switch from May down to Leniu to try to bank that cash. And I'm probably going to have to make that swap back and burn a trade in the process, but can't beat ourselves up over it too much. At least my initial thought process on Terrell May was okay, and he looked pretty good. And I think I'm going to be wanting to make that trade in round 2. Originally, I said I wanted to maybe do this in round 3. But I'm going to prep for that. Leniu's going to be out for a few weeks in round 2, and I'm going to have to make a trade there. So I want to make sure I leave myself money in the bank to be able to go from Spencer Leniu up to Terrell May. I need 100k to do that. That's why my current squad setup has got 130k in the bank. With the bench front row forwards, Sam Hughes is probably going to be staying there. I've been umming and ahhing on this fourth front row forward, and this has been a big issue for a lot of people out there. You got Poaso Famasuli for the Bulldogs. You got Liam Henry potentially there. You got Viliami for feeder. You can maybe go a little bit more expensive with like a Palacia, maybe Royce Hunt, but I don't love Royce Hunt with this 4-forward bench for the Sharks. At the moment, I've landed on Famasuli. A little bit different to what I mentioned in my cheapies video yesterday. And the big reason for that was I kind of failed to realize that with the Panthers that Scott Sorensen wasn't in that team. If he comes into that team, Luke Garner can then either move to the bench or drop out altogether. I feel like it's more likely for Garner to just drop out altogether. Liam Henry was featuring in the World Club Challenge as well for Penrith, but he only played 16 minutes. And that's a fair, I think, run out in terms of what we expect for minutes. Like Lindsay Smith, the other bench prop for the Panthers, played 47 minutes. So Liam Henry, even if he plays 16, call it 20 minutes, probably expecting maybe 20, 25 points out of him. That's about it. Granted, I'm probably expecting the same out of Farmasuli, but in terms of minutes, he's probably going to get a little bit more than 20, 25. Maybe he's closer to 35 at least as a starting prop, because he has been named to start. So I'd have to think if he's been able to start, at a minimum, he maybe gets 20 minutes in the first stint and maybe 15 in the second. So I don't love the fact that I've got both of the cheapy Bulldogs front row forwards, because the middle minutes at the Bulldogs is just so up in the air. We just really don't know. But I've at least just taken the view that I'll take the guy who's at least starting, because I think we've got a decent view of what Liam Henry's minutes are going to be for the Panthers, which is about 16 to 20. Farmasuli, he at least looks somewhat good in the trials. The middles for the Bulldogs isn't the best pack, so they may need to rely on these guys to step up a little bit. So that's just my current thought. I could very easily switch back to Liam Henry, but I think at the moment I'll be running out with both of Farmasuli and Sam Hughes as my front row forward 3 and 4, and those are a couple of reasons why. Haven't gone for Viliami Fifita, bottom dollar 204k. I just feel like there's some risk to him that Luciano Leilua should be back round 2. His suspension was reduced. Harm Saleh, I don't believe, was also named by the Dragons. He could come back as well into that team for round 2. And then all of a sudden, I think you've got, probably I'd suspect Luciano Leilua moving to the starting edge. Tom Eisenhuth moves to the bench. That gets rid of one of the bench forwards for the Dragons. And then you've also got Harm Saleh coming in, and I think that moves another one of them. And I feel like Viliami Fifita is going to be one of those 2 players who will drop out eventually. At the very least, he's a bottom dollar guy who's got dual. So if you're happy and you've got like 24 other players in your team who you think are much more guaranteed to be playing, I don't mind Fifita from the view of, look, if he gets a run out this week, then great. And if he eventually drops out of the team altogether, then fine. I've got a bottom dollar guy who's at least got dual flexibility. So you could take that approach, but I've already got Jacob Gagai as a potential risk. I'll get to my 5/8 later as well, but I've got Lockie Galvin. Got a couple of players in there who are already job security risks. I just don't think I can go overloading on too many of them, which is why I currently haven't got Viliami Fifita. In terms of the second row forward, there's actually minimal movements here. The only things that have really changed is I've got Joe Chan in now for Kane Bradley, who I had before. I kind of look at it as, look, he's close to bottom dollar. He's been named to start. I feel like Bellamy would only want to put someone in that team when he's kind of got a good view of them over the preseason. There is obviously big job security risks with him in that Sean Bloor was named in the number 18 jersey, I believe, outside of the top 17. It could be a case of that Bloor just didn't get that full preseason behind him with the Storm, but over time he could make his way back into that team. But I just think for the time being, when we don't have a great crop of cheapies, we've got a starter back rower for the Melbourne Storm, near bottom dollar. I feel like we just have to take him. I don't really want to be relying on him as a play in my 17. I just don't think he's really got the work rate. So he's there at the moment, hopefully just to make some cash. The other 3, Sean Lane, Piakura is already locked out for me, and Hailam Luki. Got some more doubts about Luki and Sean Lane. Both of them now have got an edge back rower named on the bench for them. Tuolangi for Sean Lane, and then Finifuyaki for Hailam Luki. So I'm kind of looking at these 2 thinking there is some potential risk that these guys don't play the full 80 minutes. I don't think Luki will play the full 80 minutes anyway. I think he's more likely going to be 60 minutes. But with Luki, he's got a fairly decent base power PPM. It was about 0.79 last year. So if you're looking at about 60 minutes, I'm expecting about 40-45, which is kind of what he's priced at. Any additional attacking upside, Cowboys do have a good draw. That's kind of more the reasons why I'm still happy to go with Luki. Similar with Sean Lane, he was benched in the second trial for Tuolangi, who did look quite good. But I'm kind of looking at it as, I feel like Sean Lane is eventually the 80-minute back rower for the Eels. It could be a bit of a slow burn, and I think people out there who are maybe having a little bit more doubt about him, I think there's fair enough reasons. Like, I think there's enough, if you've got enough doubt, you don't need to start with him. He's not a must-have by any means. He was looking like it beginning of preseason. But with this Tuolangi on the bench, that obviously could mean his minutes are not going to be fully secured at 80. He could be playing 60, 65. We just don't know yet. And while he's got a decent work rate, he's not like the most highest work rate back row out there. So he does rely a little bit more on attacking stats. But I'm still happy, I think, to take him. I would like Beau Fermor, but just with that whole thing of I want to have that money available to get in Terrell May for Spencer Leniu next week, I I can maybe upgrade Sean Lane to Beau Fermor, but it leaves me about 10. It still leaves me about 10k wiggle room. But I'm kind of thinking about it as Sean Lane has been named to start. We have seen in the past where Brett Arthur has sometimes not even used all of his bench. And Tuolangi, while he looked good in the trials, the last 2 clubs that he's been at, he hasn't really broken through. Sean Lane, we saw when the Parramatta Eels were at their best, he was an 80-minute back row for them. I think the Eels should be in for hopefully a good bounce back here. I think a lot of that will be due to Dylan Brown and the Sean Lane combination doing very well. So I'm kind of looking at it as enough reasons for me to still stick with Sean Lane. And Lukey, Piakura is already locked out for me. The big talking point is probably Josh Curran. So I've currently got 3 Bulldogs middle forwards, which I don't feel great about. I'm sure a lot of you out there are feeling similar. Look, with Curran, this is probably more of a vibe gut feel pick. I want to have 4 of these kind of 400k 2RS, just because I think there's so many other options. We've got Sua Wong, Tupanua, Beau Fermor is still there. I kind of want to have some money in that spot. And to be honest, now that Tupanua is locked out, there's not really a great deal of second row forwards around that price tag who I'm actually that interested in. It really is between Beau Fermor and Josh Curran. I can't really see anywhere else in my team that I want to be changing. And if I went with Beau Fermor with that 130k, it would obviously be better for this week when I think Beau Fermor is guaranteed to be playing 80 minutes. But it just stops me from doing Lenu to Terrell May. And it would mean I have to do a second trade somewhere else to make that move. And I'm kind of looking at it as, is the difference between Josh Curran and Beau Fermor really worth an extra trade? At the moment, probably not. I kind of see Beau Fermor as maybe a 60-65 average guy. I think even Curran off the bench, I still think he can be a 50 to 55 guy. So there's maybe 10 points in it. I don't see a huge amount of difference in it to be justifying already using an extra trade just to also fit in someone like a Terrell May. So with Curran, I think the minute situation will be that I still think he's going to get over 50 to 55 minutes. Like, I don't know if this is me just being kind of blind to it, but I just look at him as if the Bulldogs want to have any success, they need someone like a Josh Curran to be playing bigger minutes for them. He's got a good engine on him. He's got an offload. Like, I think he's got a SuperCoach friendly game, which is why I think even if he's coming off the bench, only playing 50 to 55 minutes, I still think in that time he can average about 50 to 55, and he's got abilities to jag attacking stats. We saw that in the second trial. I think he was on about 50. He scored about 52 in the 25 minutes that he played, 32 without some bigger attacking stats. But he got the attacking stats, which is a good sign. And he would have scored 32 points in 25 minutes without it. And apparently he was sick as well. Like, his base power PPM over the last 3 seasons, 0.72, 0.76, and 0.76, which I calculated if he plays 55 minutes, that is an average of about 41. So purely on base power, if he plays 55 minutes, even off the bench, he will still hold value. So at least he won't go down in value. And I'm kind of just thinking again with him, like, I've been pretty keen on him most of the preseason. I've wanted to get either one of him or Fermor. I've got a team set up that has both of them. Yes, he's been named on the bench, but I just look at those Bulldogs middles and I just don't think that they've got a lot of experience. And Curran is actually someone who's got a bit more experience, and I think they're going to need to rely on him. So that's kind of just really my only justifications at the moment with going with him. I think it's going to be around 50-55 minutes. I don't have Jamin Salmon currently in my team, and that's purely only because I've already got Curran and the other 2. I really don't want to be going with 4 Bulldogs middles. So Jamin Salmon currently isn't in my team. On Jamin Salmon, quickly, if you're considering him, he is quite popular. I think he's about 36% owned. I think he's probably going to be playing at least 50 minutes as well. Like, name to start, you think he's going to be playing some decent minutes. I think he's going to be an integral part of their shape and their attack. Very much a ball playing lock. But I looked at his numbers over the last few seasons with Penrith. Whenever, like, he's generally played that utility role, so it's kind of hard to get a read on his PPM all the time. But it's kind of around 0.6 to 0.65. So again, he probably needs to be playing around 60 minutes to be getting in base power about 40 points, which is still 9 points of value. So I think you're definitely going to get some money out of Salmon. I just look at him as a bit more of a slow burn, and I just kind of feel like he looks like a guy who, if he's going to be more of a ball player distributor, if he's playing 55 minutes, I kind of see him in that time scoring about 35-40. So 5 to 10 points in value, but not a whole heap. And he could maybe be a frustrating guy who you don't know whether you play him every week in your team or not. I don't know if I'm overthinking about it, but that's currently that's currently my thoughts on Salmon, and especially having these other 3 Bulldogs middles, I just can't really see myself going with Salmon as well. Now, I could go Curran down to Salmon, and have Smithies as my fourth highest second row forward. That's something I have toyed with as well, and that leaves me with a lot of money in the bank. It leaves me with about 230, so that does leave me more flexible to make changes. So that's still something I think I could do in my team. So that is definitely still something subject to change. I think I could just go down to Salmon, take that 100k saving, knowing that he's at least named to start. And look, if I get it wrong, I've got money in the bank to actually make that switch back up to Curran. Maybe another option opens up as well. But at the moment, I'm just thinking, go with my gut, which is I still think that Curran will be okay. So that's currently what I'm working with. The final guy I haven't talked about yet, Morgan Smithies. So name to start for the Canberra Raiders. Some risks with him is that Corey Horsburgh, when he comes back, could just take that lock spot. But there's been some chat that Horsburgh could come back at prop when he comes back from his suspension. And Smithies is a good work rate player. Like, he makes a lot of tackles. He's got a good engine. Like, I kind of see him being a very safe player in your teams this week as well. 50 to 55 is kind of what I expect from him. And hopefully it's a case of good performances means that he can retain that spot as a starting 13. So that's currently the few reasons I've got him as well. But that's my general thoughts on the second row forward. Just because I don't have someone like a Beau Fermor does not mean he's a bad option. I do think he's a very good option. But he's got to buy in round 2. Fafita could be back in round 3, so I'm happy to at least wait for the time being. Well, not that I can wait. I can't have him and make my money situation work to get May in next week. But at the very least, what gives me some comfort is that he's only got 1 week in round 1 where he's guaranteed to play on the left, play 80 minutes. Round 2, he has a bye. If in round 3, Fafita is back and he's playing on the right, then all of a sudden my opinion on him may change. So happy to not start with him for the time being on that basis. But look, if you gave me an extra 40k that still let me go from Lenu to May next week, I think I would still go with Beau Fermor. On my halves, no real surprises here. Hines and Cleary, been locked into that for quite a few weeks now as well. Don't see myself changing that at all. Same with Dylan Brown, absolute lock for me. The backup, Lockie Galvin, I've kind of said in some previous videos why I've decided to go with him as a backup. We've got that flexibility now with Ethan Strange, where Strange is a dual 5'8" centre wing. So if things go really wrong, or if there's a cheapy centre wing that emerges, that's how I might want to jump on. I can still use Galvin to switch to centre wing via Ethan Strange. So, and I'm just thinking that he eventually will be in that West Tigers team. Hopefully he has utility from round 1 and he's near bottom dollar. So it's a little bit different to Viliami Fafita, where I've got a bit more faith in this player to actually just break into that team based on his own quality. So that's kind of the reason why. And the good thing is that with the Eels, they don't have a buy until I think round 9. So I don't actually need him until round 9, at which point I'll have a lot more clarity on a lot of other things. Hopefully I've made some money as well. So if I need to upgrade him, I can. So just happy to take that punt on him for the time being for round 1. On my centre wings, again, not a lot has changed here. Probably the only thing, at least for this particular week, is that I'm going to be playing Tane Tuapiki and RTS. So I'm playing 2 Warriors backs against the Sharks. I like that matchup against the Sharks. I feel like there's going to be points in it. New Zealand are playing at home. They've looked good from an attacking point of view in the trials as well. So I'm happy to play Tuapiki this week because I just like being able to have a fullback available in the centre wing. Should be good for the first 3 weeks. And at the very least, if CNK comes back in round 4, Tuapiki can just stay on my bench and potentially be someone to trade out over time eventually. Or if there's any other kind of setbacks to CNK, maybe he just stays in that team a bit longer. So this is one where I'm just kind of taking a bet on good first 3 weeks. He obviously won't go in price in that first 3 weeks, but could get to a negative break even. So a few reasons with Tuapiki, and also we just don't really have a lot of good cheapy centre wings. Similar price, you could go someone like Nick Kotrick, but not keen on him. I think there's job security risks with him in that when Seb Chris comes back, I can see Hop Whitey moving to the wing spot, and Kotrick, even if he was actually still playing that team every week, he kind of is a player who I think just gets you around the low 30s, and I just don't see a lot of cash growth in him. I'd rather take a guy who's playing in a good attacking team where the backs generally do better compared to Canberra, and playing at fullback as well. RTS, Taylor May, I think pretty much, like Taylor May especially, has been locked into my team all preseason. I didn't initially have RTS, but what I saw in the trials really got me hot and bothered. So a lot of tackle busts, looked really good. I think he's going to be safe to hold his value at least for the first few weeks, and then when the draw really opens up for the Warriors, I can see him potentially going very well. So happy to start with RTS. He is very highly owned, 42%. Probably a bit of it is FOMO, but he did pass the eye test as well. And Burbo, he was already locked into my team last weekend, and I played him, so very happy with his 72 points. Same with Jacob Gagai, so I'll kind of skip over him into the reasons I started with him. Ethan Strange, probably the must-have centre wing, not centre wing, but must-have cheapie in general, been named to start for the Raiders. Now, the final guy I've got is Jack Bostock. So I could very easily go from Bostock to Jamin Salmon, but a few of the reasons I mentioned earlier, I'm not too keen on loading up on all of those middles. And the thing with Bostock is that he's currently been named to start for the Dolphins. I did think that there was maybe some job security risks to him, but I guess the other thing I thought about was this is Wayne Bennett. He's not going to pick players unless he's really thought long and hard about it and is happy with them. Another year into his NRL career, hopefully he makes an improvement on his work rate. He doesn't generally have the best work rate. The thing with Bostock is I'm happy with at least Tuapiki for the first 3 weeks to play over him, because Bostock does also have a bye in round 3. But outside of that bye, the Dolphins have got a really good draw. So I do think that they're a team who can score points. And if he's just able to jag some attacking stats early on, he can hopefully just make a little bit of money. So I think in round 4, when Tuapiki's not, let's say Tuapiki isn't an option anymore to play from round 4 onwards, I believe Bostock comes back into the Titans and the West Tigers. So there's 2 matches straight away that I'm thinking, okay, even if I don't like his base, there's some upside in attacking stats here. Happy to roll out Bostock at that point. And even then, the whole landscape could have changed massively as well. So I think at the price, it's not the cheapest at 315k, but I'm kind of looking at him as a bit more of a longer term guy who hopefully can just make a decent amount of coin and just jag some attacking stats. You could go Jamin Salmon here as well, but I think the fact that I'm loaded up already on so many Bulldogs middles, I just don't really want to have 4 of them. I feel like that's just really concentrating myself to some risk there. Finally, on the fullbacks, locked into Tommy Turbo last weekend and very happy with making that switch back to him. Kalen Ponga as well is an absolute lock. And Ponga is probably going to be my captain this week. So a quick chat about captaincy as well. I just think Ponga's got the best matchup at home to the Raiders. I know it's a Thursday night game. I wish I could VC him. But the thing is, if I VC him, I'm going to get one of these guys on my bench scoring quite low. Like I can see someone like Strange or Bostock, or maybe even someone like a Joe Chan, or actually, to be honest, it's more likely going to be someone like a Danny Levi, just getting me like 20, 25 points and not the best auto emergency. And so I looked at my team. Hines away to the Warriors. Doesn't scream the best matchup for captaincy for me personally. Same with Cleary. It's Melbourne. And I'm kind of thinking the best option is going to be Ponga. Dillbags has got a good matchup against the Bulldogs, but he's not a goal kicker. And while he's solid, probably just doesn't have that ceiling that those other 3 have. So I think Ponga is the best out of my really high upside guys. And so I think I'm just going to be straight captaining him this week as well. So that's kind of my general overview on my team. One thing I really wanted to quickly show you guys, hopefully you get some value out of this as well, and hopefully it works on my screen. It does. Beauty. So I wanted to quickly show you my trade planner spreadsheet. So a few of you guys have reached out about this trade planner over the preseason, and also massively appreciate a lot of the interest that I had in the preseason for this. So I've just been doing a little bit of planning, mainly just around that whole Spencer Leniu, Terrell May situation. But what I did was I put that same team that I've just showed you into my round 1 team picker. And then on the trade planner, what I wanted to make sure is that I've just got enough money to do Spencer Leniu to Terrell May in round 2, because I'm just planning for Spencer Leniu being out for a few weeks. And so I can do that with my 130k in the bank. I can buy Terrell May. And so that shows me there, in Terrell May, out Spencer Leniu, and that leaves me with 32k in the bank. So this is one of the big reasons why I'm not going with Beau Fermor instead of that Josh Curran position, because if I wanted to do that trade, and instead of having Curran, if I instead had Beau Fermor in round 1, I would actually be 8k short. So if you go up here, you can see, well, actually I'm 13k short. So that trade won't work in just one move. And as I said before, I'm not really thinking I want to be doing 2 trades just to get Terrell May in round 2. And I'm thinking more that I think I'll just want to get Terrell May in round 2, especially if Leniu is suspended. My original video that I said was I want him in round 3, get another week to wait, but he looks so good. I'm kind of just thinking this is one of those ones where I think I can just take that punt early on, but it requires me having Curran instead of Beau Fermor. So that's currently what I'm thinking. Could be Salmon, but again, this is a vibe pick. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. And a quick glimpse at what this trade planner spreadsheet can offer you if you are still interested. It is still available all during the season as well. So what I thought I'd do is something a little bit different, just going straight to my Twitter profile where I put out a post on about the biggest dilemmas / 50-50 calls. I've tried to respond to a lot of these, but I'll just speak it out as well in the video for people, just so that you get your question hopefully answered, even if you didn't directly ask it yourself. NRL Sponge, love this question about, can we just get more in the cap? Mate, you're going to have to call Nick Politis about that, because I'm sorry, I cannot help you there. Now, Zach Adams, this is exactly what I'm looking at doing. Do we need to free more cash for Lenu upgrade next week? As I said in my response, I'm making sure that I've got that money available to get that upgrade to Terrell May next week. Now, on the hooker spot, again, very frustrating. Do I think Lussick at the hooker spot gets 50 to 55 minutes? If I had to predict the minute split based on how the team sheet has run out, it would be probably 50 minutes for Lussick, 30 for Brendan Hands. Brendan Hands can play a bit of a utility role. He can play maybe somewhat in the middle, but strictly at number 9, I would say it's 50 minutes for Lussick and 30 for Brendan Hands. And again, if I look at that, Lussick, he hasn't got the best work rate. In 50 minutes, we are probably thinking 30, 35 points. Take Daniel Levi. He's going to give you maybe 5-10 points less, but he's 100k cheaper. So I think just take that saving. A few other questions I wanted to point out. Shout out to NRL Physio. Karaz and Palacia versus Fermor and Flegler. Help me, Aman. Physio, happy to help because you give us too much good content for free as well. I'm just going to make one comment on this whole Physio thing. I won't answer the question directly. I've already did that in the comments for him. But if you listen to NRL Physio, he is a big Jacob Karaz fanboy for this year. He's claimed him as his injury buy of the year. I think when you play this game, you want to enjoy it. First and foremost, that is the main thing. Obviously, we want to do well, we want to score points, but you want to enjoy the players that you watch. And I always play this emotional hedge game as well. So, you know what? I'll go back to my team and quickly show this off as a bit of a reference. I always look at it as the emotional hedge game of which situation are you going to be more annoyed about. So in Physio's case, where he was doing Karaz and Palacia versus Fermor and Flegler, I said to him, objectively, I think Fermor and Flegler is a better combination. But if you've been so high on someone all preseason and you don't start with them and they do very well, you are going to be absolutely kicking yourself. So I said, screw objectivity, just take the guy that you're going to have the most fun watching and you've been on all preseason. And always play that game with yourself. I always do it. Maybe it's not necessarily the best way to do decision making, but I find it's the best way to be okay with your final outcome. So that's kind of another reason why I'm still okay with Curran, because I've been fairly keen on him most of the preseason. I think coming off the bench isn't the best, but it's still not massive. And if he starts doing well and I don't have him, I'm going to be very frustrated by it. So that's kind of one of my final thoughts, I guess, around picking your team. In terms of other questions, Thompson, King, or Cotter for your front row forward 2. Haven't really commented on Cotter too much in my recent videos, but I do like him a lot now that we know that Cohen Hess is out for the entire season. I think the minutes are going to be there, and I prefer him to Max King at a very similar price, purely just because I think he's got a little bit more attacking upside for points in him compared to Max King. A few sit v start questions, Curran or Joe Chan. In that situation, I'd definitely play Curran. I'm just not really too trusting of Joe Chan's work rate. A couple of other notable questions here. Yeah, we had another Max King, Ruben Cotter question. We had a question about Jamin Salmon. Kind of spoke about him a lot in this video, so I'll probably skip over that one in a little bit more detail. Now, probably a question around the hookers. Last decision is Cotter and Appy or Palacia and Grant. I didn't really answer it in my response, but I think Cotter and Appy is actually a better combination. But if I had to rank them 1 to 4, it's definitely Grant, Coruscant, Cotter, and then Palacia. And so I think it's again a thing of they're similar, but only one of those 4 players I think is really, really going to hurt you if you don't have, and that's probably Harry Grant. So I think in those kind of 50-50s, if you've got that ability to just pick the guy who's got that really high ceiling, as long as that 4th guy that you're compromising on is going to do a serviceable job, I think take the high upside guy who you're going to enjoy watching a bit more as well. So again, in that situation, I'd probably say as a combination, Cotter and Appy is better, but I think Harry Grant is by far and away the best out of those 4. So that's kind of how I would pick them. There's another Grant or Appy question. Obviously in a straight 50-50, I would definitely choose Harry Grant. Probably the final question I might pick out. Kotrick we've already covered. Daniel Levi we've already covered as well. Just seeing if there's anything else to cover. That's not too team specific. Lots of questions from you guys. Apologies I haven't got to all of these guys yet. But you know what? I might just wrap up the video there just to pick out a few final questions. But yeah, some final thoughts on how to best make your decisions, best make your trades, and a final look at my team as well. So appreciate this video is going to be like a little bit all over the shop, but hopefully you still got some value out of it. I will be back on Thursday for a live stream, hopefully, so please do subscribe to check it out. We're actually on, I last checked, 3,966 subscribers. Can we get to 4,000 subscribers by tomorrow lockout? That would just make me so grateful for you all. So any new viewers out there, if you are watching this video, do please subscribe if you want to see more content through the season. But I'll end it there. Thank you all for tuning in. See you in the next one.